What is going on, all of you hoverboard riders and space explorers out there in the world? I am Mega Amster. Thank you for watching this review video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, I appreciate you stopping by. And today I wanted to talk about my time recently that I wrapped up with the indie game Star Overdrive. This game came out, for now, timed exclusive on the Nintendo Switch about almost a month ago as of this upload. It will be coming to other platforms like PS5, Xbox Series X and S, as well as PC, sometime later in June of 2025. But for now, it's only on Switch, and it's been out on Switch for just about a month now. Shout out to the developers, Caracal Games, who developed this game, and the publishers, Dear Villagers. They uploaded a kind of a playthrough of the demo here, the first 20 minutes. I figured I would do this because, like, the kind of game it is, it might spoil if I show gameplay immediately. And the way I usually do these reviews is I have little to no spoilers or light spoilers at the very beginning part, and then I'll have a dedicated spoiler section where I'll go into the gameplay and talk about everything this game has to offer there. But you can get an idea of the gameplay here. Shout out to the developers here. But yeah, so this game came out. I didn't know about this game until it was announced in a Nintendo Direct sometime in 2024. It was like one of the first games they showed off, and it immediately caught my attention. The basic premise of this game is an open world exploration game with hoverboarding, which, like, open world games for me can be a little iffy, but specifically like adding hoverboarding, I love movement in games. Like, if a game has a really smooth movement option, I'm bound to love it. And that's why this caught my eye. I'm like, ooh, hoverboarding with different tricks, different abilities. I'm like, I have to jump on board with this. And so I did. And so I bought it at launch. There's a regular version, I think, for like 35 bucks, and digital deluxe for 40 might be the pricing. Definitely double check me on those, but at least on the Switch, that's what it was when I bought it. But yeah, basic premise of the story as we get into it, you play as this character named Bios, who crash lands on this planet. I think it was called Sabit, is what it was. I think that's what flashed on the screen. I honestly don't remember exactly. But essentially, you crash on a planet, new world to explore. Your friend Noose supposedly went to this planet and is stranded there, and you essentially are trying to go rescue her. And it's the main drive for the plot of this game. You're exploring this new planet with all sorts of different biomes and kind of exploring around there. And you can see, like, I'm going to try not to make a lot of comparisons here, but I do have to bring up the fact that this game is extremely inspired by Breath of the Wild in particular, with some of the abilities, with some of the overworld, even some of the bosses have a lot of similarity to what you would see in Breath of the Wild, but on a much smaller scale. I put, I think, 50 hours into this game, and I did almost everything I could. So if you just wanted to mainline this game, it would probably take you 20, 30 hours. But I tried to explore every nook and cranny as much as I could. So yeah, I mean, if that's one thing with open world games that kind of like keep you away, like sometimes they do for me, this game is not super duper long. So this is a much more manageable kind of slice of that genre, but it still succeeds in what it does in a lot of ways. So you're kind of going off your spaceship and you're exploring. You don't have your hoverboard right away, but once you get it, it just feels so good, and the soundtrack kicks in. The soundtrack, by the way, fantastic. They created an original band for this game, specifically for the vocal tracks, and there's a lot of ambient tracks as well. But if you're a fan of, like, for example, the soundtrack in Guardians of the Galaxy, Eidos Montreal game that came out several years ago, it's very much that vibe. Kind of, I've heard it being compared to like Van Halen a little bit, if you kind of like that vibe. Very, very fun music. And like the guitarist is really good, and just like great songs to jam to, especially when you have a like fun, intense moments. You're doing tricks off of jumps with the hoverboard. So you are exploring these biomes. You're doing tricks off the hoverboard, and the tricks are simple. It's not like Tony Hawk rules. It's literally just like you tilt the right stick in a certain direction, and you start to do flips, and you'll gain boost, which then if you land correctly, which most of the time you will, they're pretty forgiving about that, you'll speed off into the distance, which is super duper cool. And there are things for you to do around the open world, which you'll see here, we'll get into. There are towers, so if you don't like the tower formula, this is the tower open world formula, so that might turn you off a little bit, but there's not as many of them, thankfully. Like I said, it's a shorter game, but you go to a tower, you have to climb up the tower with like sort of platforming challenge. You get to the top, and you'll unlock the kind of map area for that region. It's kind of broken into regions in other open world games. And then you can like launch yourself off and reach other areas. There are other things to do. There are like combat trials you can encounter. I'll talk about the combat separately, but you can like come across enemies, collect resources. You see there are those green gems in the background. That's kind of like your currency, when it comes to upgrading your board, which I'll also talk about in a second. But you also collect different types of materials, which further contribute to upgrading your board. You can unlock chests, usually involved by doing some sort of puzzle solving, like pressing enough switches or doing certain mini platforming challenges, stuff like that. So you'll see those as you come across. There are, I have to bring this up because it's very comparable. There are shrine equivalents in this game, and they call them mines. So they're underground. I guess shrines might have been too. I don't know. I don't know how those work there, but essentially they have these mining points where you go and you essentially have a dungeon, the mini dungeon like challenge. Usually some kind of puzzle platforming challenge that you have to get through. And each one of those has a hidden chest, which unlocks new hoverboard designs and new hoverboard parts, which is super duper cool. So those are scattered all about the world. You usually have to, there's usually a few per region, and you have to get to the tower first in order to access them and activate them. And one of them in each area is usually like a race where you have to essentially beat the timer, go through a bunch of rings within the time limit, and then you'll unlock stuff. And there is a skill tree. Completing every one of these mining points will give you a point on the skill tree to unlock all sorts of different abilities. Mainly like upgrades like more health, more defense, higher chances of dropping certain crafting materials. But there are a few abilities that I won't spoil here that are tied to that skill tree that your character bios can do. There's a bunch of different racing challenges outside of the mining points as well. You can find and collect hoverboard designs around the world. There are different tapes that you can get. They look like cassette tapes, which is cute. I love that vibe of. There's essentially audio logs of the character News, who you're trying to rescue and trying to find her. She's your best friend in this game, and she's kind of logging her experience being on this planet, and like different experiments she's been running, and kind of her feelings about being stranded there, and what she thinks of BIOS and all of that stuff. Which is, if you're a sucker for those kind of audio logs, they're here. You can also unlock, I want to say it's 11 different of the vocal tracks that are also separate tapes that you can play whenever you want on the overworld and as you're going through, which is really, really cool. I love when games do that. They let you choose a song and you can play whatever song you want, especially because this game soundtrack is awesome. So I love that about it. There are a few other things around the overworld that you can do, but the main thing I want to highlight here, because it's up, is customization of your board. Because using the board itself is really fun, but there's a lot of customization if you're into that. And it genuinely, let me actually go back to it just to go through that segment again. It impacts your gameplay. So essentially, near each tower, you'll find a different like crafting station, and based on the currency and those gems I talked about that you collect, and also the materials you collect, you can actually change the stats of your board. So you can have, like, for example, speed is a stat that you can increase or boost. Gravity, I think, makes you go higher in the air when you go off a jump. Maybe, I could be wrong about that. Control, obviously better control. Power, meaning it's more durable. And the bond you can also increase, but that's also something that increases with just discovery and playing of the game. But you can see, like, depending on what materials you put in, you can increase and decrease certain stats. And what I love about the stat menu here is they really go in depth to show you, like, before you craft it here, you can see the outline of the shape. That's like what it's going to look like if you were to craft it and spend the money to craft that component, which is really, really cool. They also do this thing in each region of the map you get to, where they have a recommended level that they show you the outline of, like, your graph. It kind of reminds me of like Pokemon IVs, if you ever have paid attention to that. But for each region in the map, they'll show you an outline of, where they recommend your stats are. So you might go to a new area and it's like, oh, my gravity's a little less than what they recommend, so maybe the next component I'll craft is gravity. And you can do all sorts of, you can equip all sorts of different parts, like an engine, booster, wings, and so forth, and they all affect different stats there. You can also paint the hoverboard you saw there, like with the design, but also you can choose like up to 4 different paint colors for different parts of the design, and also make BIOS match those colors, which is cool for customization. If you like the customization, there's a lot in this game. And what's also cool is that, when you newly paint your board, it actually gives you a temporary stat buff, kind of like if you were to like wax a surfboard, it's their equivalent of it, which makes so much sense. And I just love little details like that. So that's super cool. But yeah, you can craft your board, you can customize your board to pretty much give it all sorts of stuff, and affect all sorts of abilities. There are a few different types of terrain in this game that normally you can't crossover on your own. There's water, there's I think they call it metallic, and there's corruption. And normally you can't hover over those on your own, but you can craft the right pieces to your board that will give you the ability to go over those, which is great. And so as I was going in the game, I'm crafting more and more and better materials, putting in more money, putting in more materials, and making it so that is a really fun playing experience. And it does make a significant impact how you craft uh, your different board pieces there. It makes a huge impact on gameplay. So definitely, depending on what you like to do, I like to balance as much as I can with the different stats. Craft however you want. If you want more speed, if you want more control, you have that choice. Now they're showing it off a little bit here. Let's get into the combat a little bit, because a big complaint I've heard about this game is that the combat is a little stale. And I do definitely agree on that. It's not the most well-versed combat. By default, you have this keytar, they call it, which is kind of funny, where you can do like some melee attacks. You can do a charge attack. There's an aerial attack. And that's kind of your base combat. But similar to what happens in like, I hate making this comparison again, but like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, right? Especially Breath of the Wild, you have the runes, those abilities that you get. You get similar abilities in this game that impact puzzle solving, combat, and boarding, like all three, and they have different effects on those, which is really, really cool. Very cool utilization of those abilities. One thing I hate about games sometimes is how a lot of abilities are one-time uses, and that's really it. But these abilities will change and give you all sorts of impact on gameplay when it comes to both puzzle solving and hoverboarding and combat. So here's an example of one of the mines that they're doing here, using the grab ability. Think like the Magnesis rune in Breath of the Wild is what they're doing here. You can pick up objects and throw them, but you can also like latch onto things when you're on your board. In terms of combat, you can like lift up enemies and kind of stun them for a little bit, which is really, really cool. So these abilities give you more combat options, which is really cool. Once you unlock them, I kind of the only one other ability I'm going to mention because it's important for combat. I want to save the others so you don't get spoiled on them. One of the others is a projectile-based ability, which is really, really useful for combat, especially where you can just pretty much spam projectiles, and it does deplete. You see there's an energy gauge above BIOS right there, but doing attacks and landing successful tricks will fill that up more. But spamming those projectile moves against enemies can be very, very useful, and for combat especially, that becomes super useful. And it's good for like hitting switches on the in the distance for like puzzle solving and stuff like that. So like they're multi-use abilities, which I love when games do that and don't make them feel super situational and like a one-time use thing. Like these abilities are used for all sorts of gameplay that you're doing in this game, which is really cool. Here's a look at the skill tree, by the way, and how you complete a mine, you collect that power core, I think they call it, and you can slowly progress up the tree. As a lot of skill trees working in the games, but the abilities I really do like in this game. There's a lot of good variety. I used some more than others. I'll save that for the spoiler section. But overall, all the abilities were pretty useful, I would say. And they did get some use out of me, and they did make the game more unique. And the abilities are not copy and paste like Breath of the Wild abilities. Like, don't worry, they are unique in their own right, and I'll get into that more in the spoiler section. There was no projectile move in Breath of the Wild, right? Like that alone is something. But some of them are similar, like the grab one you just saw. But yeah, you can see just kind of you're roaming around here on the hoverboard, doing all sorts of tricks. I love doing this. And here's my thing about one big complaint I've seen in some reviews and stuff, and that I honestly don't agree with. A lot of reviews have mentioned that the exploration in this game, there's not enough to do in the world. And I have to disagree, because here's my thing, right? In a normal open world game, I would say yes, that is definitely a con to the game itself. But here, I do not think it is, because the thing is, you're going between interest point to interest point on the map using a hoverboard. This is not a slow hoverboard, especially once you upgrade it. This thing gets very fast. So I almost wouldn't want there to be too much on the map, because you're going very fast between point and point. You can go from one end of the map to the other in like 5 minutes. Like, the world is big, but you have a fast hoverboard on your side to explore and to power through and speed through those areas. So I honestly disagree with that. I think it would be honestly too much if they added like even more things to do in the open world. Like, honestly, this was kind of the perfect scenario where they are an indie studio. They have a lower budget. Even with the developers, or the publishers, they have a lower budget here to work with compared to other open world games. And that kind of works because they're like, okay, well, let's make a really fast transportation method in between points of interest, and that could be the hoverboard. And like, it honestly works out really well in that regard. I really do think they succeed there. Where I don't think they succeed as much, and this is my biggest criticism with the game, is the repetition of it all. Because there's not, I like the fact that there's not like an overwhelming amount of things to do in the overworld, but a lot of them get repetitive. A lot of them are just, they're just collecting resources, collecting gems, and doing, there's a lot of time trials and doing a lot of those over and over again. That to me gets repetitive, as well as the biomes. There's not a lot of biomes in this overworld. What you're seeing right here is the main biome in this overworld. There are a couple of others. There's like a greener area you can kind of see off in the distance there. That goes on for a little bit, and there's kind of like a blocky area in one of the more difficult areas of the game, but otherwise it's pretty much the same exact biome. I love the art style of this game. I think visually it looks beautiful, and I love how colorful it is, but it is very repetitive, and especially for an open world game. I mean, it's not a huge game, but even of this size, like, that definitely gets a little tiring, and it can feel like a grind. Like, it does. This game is very much a checklist game where it just feels like you are clearing objectives on a map. And the story can kind of take a sidestep sometimes. But there are a few key moments with like key boss fights in the game that are really, really fun. The one boss fight I will mention here are the dune jumpers, which are essentially sandworms. They show that off in the trailer, and that is super fun because you use the grab ability I mentioned previously. You latch onto them, and then you use the projectile-based ability that you're seeing here with the Kitar to essentially take them down. And you're latched onto them, you're surfing, latched onto them, and then you're spamming projectiles at them as you're like attached onto them riding the dunes. It's really, really fun. Enemy variety is pretty decent in this game. There's not a ton of enemies, but there's like different living creatures. There's like robots. There's all sorts of stuff there. And they all have different abilities. Some of them are annoying, some of them not as annoying, but definitely varies. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the core gameplay here is fun, but my biggest complaint is that it is a little repetitive. It is a lot of the same stuff over and over again, and there's not an overwhelming amount of it, but it does get repetitive, and like the scenery gets a little repetitive. If one thing is, if you are worried about the performance of this game, considering this is on the original Nintendo Switch that it's only playable on right now, first of all, you could wait until the other versions come out in June. But also, for being on the first Switch, this is not bad in the slightest. Like, there were some frame drops here and there, and I will say the game did crash on me a few times, unfortunately, when it was, like, loading too many things. I'd have to crash and then restart. But the auto-saving feature in this game is actually quite good, I will say, so I was able to boot back into the game and pretty much pick up right where I left off. Unfortunately, that happened a few times. But in terms of the frame rate, for the most part, it maintains, as you can see the frame rate in the top left, it maintains a consistent 30 frames, which, if you're a stickler for frame rate, sure, you're not going to get your 60 frames on here. This might be a fun game to have 60 frames on, but I played the demo before I bought the game on Switch, and I was like, you know what? This feels really good to play. And so I was like, I'm down to play this at launch on Switch. And I did, and I can say it's a fun experience at 30 frames. For the most part, consistent. Some of the heavier areas with more stuff to model, not so much. But, that happens with even first-party Switch games at this rate, right? So, pretty solid performance overall. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I haven't covered. I feel like I've covered pretty much everything else. The ending, of course, a twist. You would expect there to be a twist of some sort. I'm not going to say what that is, of course, but there are some twists and turns in the story. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun. It honestly just feels great to play. This is a really fun game, and I am happy having played it. I'm happy that it's literally, I put 50 hours and combed almost everything I could. There were a few things I missed at the end of the day, but I combed almost every inch of the map and found almost everything that I could. And I'm happy that it was only 50 hours. Like, I hope more open world games can be like this. I don't want a 200-hour experience of this game like I put into Tears of the Kingdom every time. Maybe once in a while, but like, if it's a game like this is a perfect amount in my opinion. And I felt like there was enough personally on the open world to keep me interested, and also to not make it feel like I was complete stop and go because the hoverboard's so fast. The hoverboarding itself feels really fun. It's simple enough, but really, really satisfying. Some pretty good like spectacles for boss fights. Not all of them were great, but like the dune jumpers here were fantastic. I loved those whenever I came across them. I was always so excited. And some interesting collectibles and background lore. The story, nothing to write home about, but it's definitely at least interesting enough to keep you engaged. But the main draw here is exploring the planet of Sebit, however you pronounce it, and getting to utilize the abilities, which have multiple uses. I love that. That's one of my favorite parts about this game. The multi-use abilities, depending on the context of gameplay, is awesome. And of course, fantastic music. The game itself, I think, looks great. I just wish there was a little more of a visual variety in terms of the biomes. But overall, I would give this game a recommendation for sure. I mean, at this point, it comes out on all other platforms in about a month and a half as of this upload. So if you want to wait until that for better performance, I mean, you can. But it also is on the Switch if that's your only option. But playing portably was fun. I'm sure it'll be fun on Steam Deck as well when it comes out on Steam. But definitely, I would highly recommend it. If you're a fan of other open world games, even if you're not, if you've ever been daunted by the gameplay time, like length of an open world game, this game is much, much shorter than all of those other ones. And, if you were like me and you're interested in the hoverboarding, like, it's there. It's really fun to utilize. So if you're into that, definitely go check it out. But with that, that was so long. I have a lot to say about this game. I really did enjoy this game, and I really had a lot of fun. But now I'm going to go into the spoiler section and kind of show off some gameplay here. So I'll give you a few seconds to click away and go... click away and go play the game yourself if you want to. So I'll give you a few seconds here before I jump into gameplay and spoil the heck out of this thing. All right. So let's go into my save file here. This is full spoilers. Let's see what I got. So I did end up getting, there's some optional challenge you can do where you like pray at these different shrines, essentially, is what it seems like. Not like Breath of the Wild shrines like in the game, kind of. And if you give enough parts at each place, you get essentially the best board in the game that is completely balanced. So you can see all of my stats are completely filled up. The recommended is like, nah, what are we doing here? I really enjoyed this game, man. This was really fun. I took a bit of a risk on it. Oh, I forgot to mention the fact that you can de-equip the board and you can also give it commands about how to do stuff. So you can tell it to attack, distract enemies, use a hover sword. I didn't even use the hover sword. I never tried this. Oh my god. Oh, I didn't even know you could do this. I should have experimented with this more, man. I really did not. I usually just set it to attack by default, but that's a really cool option you can have. I completely forgot to mention that. The puzzle solving was pretty fun in this game. It definitely got repetitive, though. There were a few puzzles I did not solve. Let's actually take a look at you can see my components here. And the skill tree. The energy burst attack is being the final thing. I really didn't use it. I am a little annoyed that the fast travel option between towers is locked behind the skill tree. I will say I feel like I didn't need it a ton because it was just, so quick to move between towers. But you can see here's my almost fully completed map here. There are a few things that I just didn't do. I don't know why that icon isn't grayed out now, but I mostly figured everything else out. I missed a couple chests here and there. I did miss a lot of the designs, like locked behind secret chests, because they don't tell you in the mines. There's one secret chest per mine, and they don't tell you. Oh, wait a minute. They do. I lied. Wow, okay, I had no idea. They do tell you that. Okay, so like this one, I haven't gotten it. I will say they did have an update recently that added some quality of life features. I think that must have been it in that update. They also made it a lot easier for tracking things, like when you're doing the time challenges. And I think that made the performance like more consistent. So this was like a recent, like maybe a week ago, a patch they did, which is really good. And all sorts of audio logs. I got all the photos, and I missed one tape, and I have no idea where the hell it is, but I missed one tape. I got the entire soundtrack, which was cool. I still have all sorts of materials. But I really enjoyed this game. Most usabilities, let me talk about that. The link ability. I use this thing all the time. Tether, whatever they call it. What do they call it? They don't actually say here. I love this ability because when you're hoverboarding, it gives you the free extra boost. It tethers the ground in front of you and gives you a free extra boost, which is utterly genius. I just love having that extra boost. And then, for combat, if you link enemies, they're actually weaker, and it's also very useful for puzzle solving as well. I use that in a similar way. The jumping platform one, I also used a lot for boarding, you know, it gives you a little jump in the air, which is kind of useful for some time trials, but also in combat, it's useful to make enemies weaker as well. If they're bouncing, they're just kind of hard to hit. So once I got the link ability, I didn't really use it for combat anymore. But the platforming, I mean, I use it all the damn time. The cool thing about that ability being you can kind of drop down, and essentially it kind of keeps your momentum. So if you drop down from high up onto the bouncing platform, you go immediately back up to the height that you fell from, which is a really, really neat idea. Um, I will say the hypnotize and the stop ones were my least used. The stop one mainly because I got it. It was the last ability I got, just the way I was exploring the map. So I didn't get that one till late in the game. But that one, it was useful for that one puzzle to like shoot the lasers at the orbital thing, whatever that you needed to do to summon that one boss. But like I really didn't use it too much. Like even for boarding, it's just not the most useful. I mean, it's useful for turning, like tight turns, I guess, which would have been useful in the upper area if I had known to get it first. Um, but yeah, I didn't really use it in combat. A couple times I did. It was mainly for the puzzle solving, and the hypnotize ability. I don't even. What does it even do? I'm trying to remember what it does for the boarding. It might just enhance your boost or something. I don't know. I really only use this for puzzle solving. Combat occasionally, but I really only use it for the puzzle solving when it was necessary. I think it like gives you better stats or something. I don't know. You like hypnotize your board or whatever. Speaking of your board, okay, and I think this is how the story went, but I kind of called that Noose was going to end up being the AI in the board, which I think is what they implied by the ending. If that's not what they implied, definitely correct me in the comments, but that's kind of how I interpreted it. That she was trying to figure out how to better bond with her hoverboard, and it turned out she was like, there's an ancient race of beings that existed in space that I think were the pulse rates. They like figured out how to create the ultimate bond, and I think they put themselves in the pulse rates because they're kind of like these robotic things, and I think that's how I understood it. And then New studied that and put herself into the hoverboard, I think is how I interpreted it. I mean, it also could have been that she was in the pulsar. I don't know. It was a whole thing that I didn't fully understand. I feel like they didn't fully explain it right, but I definitely believe she's in the board somehow. Like that's her. She uploaded her conscious essentially into an AI. Is how I interpreted it. And I mean, I kind of figured that was going to happen based on the fact that you're increasing your bond with the board. Like that just made too much sense to me. I forgot to talk about the mods too. There are a lot of different mods. I saved. Yeah, this one, the extra jump, I saved for some of the time trial challenges that like had some of the orbs like way high up in the air. I saved those a lot. The boss fights, the final boss was okay. It really, a lot of those boss fights ended up being just like kind of racing boss fights on the hoverboard, which were kind of tricky sometimes because the controls can be a little slippery, especially when you're like tight turning and like racing. There's the one boss in the north that you race through, kind of like the maze, and that one took me forever because of the tight turns, and I kept crashing into walls. But like a lot of them ended up just being like racing challenges, catch up to the enemy and like stay within their vicinity for a certain amount of time until the bar lowers, and then you just mash the Y button to lower the health and repeat that 2 more times. That was literally like the last 3 bosses I did. Still fun spectacles to like hoverboard around, but they were kind of tricky to do. Because doing that and also trying to hoverboard at the same time, like maintain that, was a little tricky for me. There was that one boss against that first pulse rate that was actually like a boss itself. And that one was tricky, but also pretty good. And like I said, I like the dune jumpers, but some of the later boss fights, not that they were bad, they were just kind of definitely felt samey. Even the final boss had the same kind of gameplay gimmick. But it was kind of a spectacle, like flying up in the air. Trying to reach that thing was a pain in the ass first, though. But I love the fact that I can just get this high up, do this many tricks, and then land and go, oh, well, mess that one up. And just go flying off at crazy speeds. It's so satisfying. Like, this alone I just do for hours, even though I don't need to and I'm not making progress on anything. It's like, I can just do that. And that's why I'm like, there's still plenty to do in the map here. That's why I don't understand that criticism, because there's plenty to do on the map here. But also, it would be way too much if you did even more, because there's just, you're going so fast with the hoverboard, even at an early stage. So, I don't know. I'd never understood that criticism, but it definitely, the biomes, the repetition definitely can get to you. I really wanted to see this game through because I felt because it was so repetitive that if I dropped it and tried to pick it back up later, I probably wouldn't have seen it through. I wish there was a little more visual variety when it comes to the biomes, and also maybe some of the challenges you can do on the overworld because it's mainly time trials and like finding new board styles. Like these things are the time trials. There are a million of those. The mines were good, and then like yeah, just chests or finding hoverboard. I wish there were more. Honestly, dune jumpers would be great, or different types of them. I know there are a couple varieties, but I don't really know what it meant exactly. Yeah, I don't know. So more variety would have been nice, but like that's my biggest complaint about this game. Everything else is like this game is just really fun to play. This game is such a vibe. The soundtrack, the aesthetic, the core gameplay of just hoverboarding around. The combat isn't the most interesting. Once you get the other abilities that have multiple uses, it gets a little more interesting, but still can still be a little stale. But just the gameplay, the hoverboarding is really the showpiece here. It's super fun to do. Not the most in depth, but like it's just fun. This is just so satisfying to me, and made playing through this game and definitely worth it. And like I said, it's literally I put. Let's actually check my gameplay time here. I think I put maybe 50, 55. Yeah, 50 hours and more. Like I said, like, and I've combed almost every part of the map. Like, if you're not doing that, you're probably gonna put maybe 30 hours in this game. Like, really appreciate just the size of this game, the length of this game, and it's an indie developer. Always love to support indies. All right, everybody, I need to end this review video because otherwise I'm going to be taking way too long doing this if I just keep at it. Had a lot to say about this game. There is a lot to cover. Especially, I'm fine with it because it's a lesser known studio. It's an indie studio. And this game didn't get a ton of traction. Just the most it probably got was at the Nintendo Direct where they aired it, right? But it's a really fun game. I really do recommend it. If you are looking, actually, hold on. Let me. I just realized I should not be showing this in case someone skips to the end. So give me a couple seconds here while I boot up the final menu. Um, yeah, honestly, like, would highly recommend this game. It's a much shorter open world game compared to other ones. Great presentation, really fun gameplay. Combat can get be a little stale, and there's definitely repetition when it comes to the challenges in the world and some of the biomes. But besides that, it's a really fun game. I really enjoyed just hoverboarding in the open world, figuring out what was going on with the story, collecting things as I like to do in these games, and just vibing, just having a good time. Multi-use abilities makes this really fun, as well as just the different challenges you can do. I wish there were more of them, like I said, but they are fun for what they are. But overall, hey, if you're looking forward to this, lots of customization too, by the way. If you're into that sort of thing, if that appeals to you, I would go check it out. I mean, you can wait. Like I said, it's coming to multiple platforms. All the other platforms, essentially. It's currently exclusive on the Switch. But in like mid to late June, it should be on other platforms. So, if you want to check it out, then you can too. But definitely check it out at some point. I would definitely recommend it. But with that, that is going to do it for this review video. Sorry for being so long, but I had a lot to talk about. So let me know your thoughts on this game in the comments below. Have you played it? Did you enjoy it? Or were you curious about it? Haven't played it yet, might pick it up now. Or did you not like it? There's valid criticisms to make about this game like any game. So let me know what you thought about this game and what you do think about it now in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you all on the next video or live stream. And until then, keep on board and we're going to head off into space. See you later.